The Adventures of Mr. Babbs. On today's episode, what's a limited government? Welcome back. I'm glad to see you're still interested in learning about governments. We already learned about unlimited governments, so today we are going to learn about limited governments. Basically, a limited government is the complete opposite of an unlimited government. In a limited government, the leaders are chosen by the citizens and must follow the same laws as the citizens. Also, in a limited government, the government's powers are limited by a constitution. But be careful, because even unlimited governments can have constitutions. So to truly tell if a country has a limited government, you have to look at other characteristics as well. In a limited government, citizens enjoy several rights and freedoms, including voting in elections with several candidates from different political parties, and freedom of speech, including speaking out against the government without censorship. Also, in limited governments, you will see a system of checks and balances so that one person does not gain too much power. There are three main types of limited governments in the world today. So let's begin exploring. The first type is a constitutional monarchy. Does this sound kind of familiar? That's right. It sounds very similar to an absolute monarchy. But there's a big difference. In a constitutional monarchy, the king or queen does not have any real power because the country has a constitution that protects the rights of the people and limits the power of the monarch. So who is the leader in a constitutional monarchy? The leader is often called a prime minister, chancellor, or premier. They are elected either directly or indirectly by the citizens. Some examples of a constitutional monarchy today are the United Kingdom. The monarch in the UK is Queen Elizabeth II. The leader is Prime Minister Theresa May. Another example is Japan. The monarch in Japan is Emperor Akihito. The leader is Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Let's move on to the next type of limited government. Another example of a limited government is a parliamentary democracy. A parliamentary democracy can look very similar to a constitutional monarchy because the leader might also be a prime minister, chancellor, or premier. This means that technically a constitutional monarchy is also a parliamentary democracy. But it doesn't mean that a parliamentary democracy is always a constitutional monarchy. Because in a pure parliamentary democracy, there is no monarch. In a parliamentary democracy, the leader is chosen by the legislative branch, which is often called parliament. It is usually the leader of the political party with the most representatives in parliament. Some parliamentary democracies may also have a second leader called the president. But this president normally doesn't have any real power. They are elected to represent the country at events or special occasions around the world. Some examples of a parliamentary democracy in the world today are India. The Prime Minister of India is Narendra Modi. Another example is Germany. The Chancellor of Germany is Angela Merkel. Move on to the third and final type of limited government. The last example of limited government is a presidential democracy. A presidential democracy should look very familiar to you. This is the kind of democracy we have in the United States. The leader in a presidential democracy is called a president and is elected by the citizens. One big difference between a presidential democracy and a parliamentary democracy is that a president is the head of the executive branch and works separately from the legislative branch. Some examples of a presidential democracy besides the United States are Brazil. The president of Brazil is Michel Temer. Another example is Kenya. The president of Kenya is Uhuru Kenyatta. That's our last example. Let's go wrap this up. Okay, is your head spinning yet? Don't worry, it's really quite simple to tell the difference between these types of government. If a country has a monarch and a prime minister, chancellor, or premier, it's a constitutional monarchy. If a country has a prime minister, chancellor, or premier, but no monarch, it's a parliamentary democracy. And if a country has a president and no prime minister or monarch, it is a presidential democracy. Now that you know the difference between the types of limited government, which type do you think is the most effective?